Welcome to the Modern Mystic Podcast, where we help you make your spirituality an actuality and find more meaning, mindfulness, and magic in your day-to-day life. I am your host, Kilkenny, who is an elite coach, yoga and meditation professor, priestess, psychic medium, and astrologer, and have been training and spiritually mentoring folks for over the past 20 years. And today I am welcoming back friend of the podcast, friend of myself, manifesting expert Joe Longo. And we are going to go deep into the actual nuts and bolts of how to manifest anything. We're going to offer y'all concrete steps to magic and manifesting and other details on how to do so in the realms of love, business, health, money, and spirituality. These are things that as a coach and Joe being a coach, folks come to us all the time to help us or to help them get worked on. So without further ado, welcome Joe to the Modern Mystic Podcast.
Hey, Kilkenny, thank you so much. Beautiful intro. I'm so happy to be here and talking about this manifestation world that we sit in. As I was saying earlier, there's so many. So going right in, everybody that's listening. My name's Joe, and I'm an intuitive mindset and manifestation coach. And I've really been sitting with this because I have a school community, and school is this lovely platform where we hang out and have manifestation mastermind groups every Monday night. We do Kundalini yoga, and really everything that we do is based around manifestation. We have an oracle card hangout. It's a really fun community, and we talk about all of these things. And last night was our Monday night group, and we were talking about thoughts and thinking. So
let's go.
Here we go. Hold on, everybody. Hold on to your seats. Right. So we have to have a thought, right? The inspired idea. We have to have the thought of what it is we want. And when we have that thought, then we have to stop thinking.
So true.
And it's one of those things that it's like, okay, I need to think, right? I need to figure out that thought. What is it that I want? Usually what happens after we get we finally are like, yeah, this is it. I want that car. I want that house. I want that job, the partner, whatever it is. We get excited. And we typically want to tell somebody, Bob, guess what? I'm going to manifest a Lamborghini. And Bob says, no, you're not, Joe. You can't do that. And now I start thinking. I was super excited. I finally know what I want. This is what I'm going to get. I'm going to make this happen. And here comes Bob. Bob is telling me that I can't. And now I go home from hanging out with Bob, right? Like, I'm questioning everything. Maybe I really can't do that. I never thought I wanted it, but I guess how am I going to do it? And we start questioning all of it. And then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I don't even think I'm going to, no, Bob's right. I can't do it. And we talk ourselves out of it. So it's this interesting space. So I've been teaching a Kundalini workshop called Creatively Manifesting Your Life for maybe 15 years now. And when I first started teaching it, people would call me and say, Joe, it works. This shit works. Like, I did this, I did that. And you know what I would do? I'd hang up the phone and say, where's mine? When am I going to get mine? How am I going to get? Why isn't it happening for my thoughts? Right?
Yeah.
My thoughts start taking me. So I've been sitting in this wonderful paradigm of we have to have the thought of what it is that we want. And then we have to hold true to it and not let the outside world get to us. We have to go within and let that little voice inside guide us. So
I love what you're saying. And I just want to highlight for the listeners because, I want to get into the subtleties of this because manifesting is such a buzzword. And, you hear, everyone talking about manifesting. And there's so many perspectives and angles and experiences on this. And I love what you're talking about because one thing you're talking about is starting and sourcing all of what you want from deep within. So as you're talking, it's really helping me even clarify to share with the listeners, right? First, it's like we got to get in touch with what we want. And I know that sounds so obvious, like a blaring flash of the obvious, but if you're someone like I have 5 planets in Libra, oh my God, talk about like, at
Mm-hmm.
times confusion and conflicting feelings. And, so much of what we think we want is also programmed in our subconscious from our upbringing too. So let's start even
Mm-hmm.
earlier than I even realized we'd start this conversation, because it's really important, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do we and you, for example, distinguish and get clear about what you want versus the voices of your parents or whoever raised you, or the culture, who gave us all these subliminal messages? How do
Mm-hmm.
we know what we want is actually what we want?
That's
Especially if we're so willing to give it away when Bob says whatever. Yeah. So let's start there with the
right.
intention and how we
So
get very clear.
in getting clear is first coming to this, and this topic is so big, and it's like God, there are so many rivers, right, that'll get you to that source, and it's finding out which works for us. But we're starting with that, like, what is it that we want? A wonderful way to start exploring this, because we are built up with our excuses of everything from the time we come out of the womb, from how we're raised, that we're not aware of. So when I say, what do you want to manifest? You look like a deer in headlights. And you're like, I don't, I don't know. I don't know. Okay. What do you like? I'm not really sure. Okay. And it can be scary. Like, oh my goodness, I don't know what I want. Or this is exciting. I get to figure out what I want. I get to start exploring. And that's the like, if we can just change the dial from, oh my goodness, this is scary, I have no idea what I want, puts us in the I don't know what I want loop. We change the dial to the other side, because we're controlling all of it. And we say, I'm so excited to be on this journey of exploration. I'm going to figure out what I like, and just literally experiment. Take yourself out on a date, do fun things. What do you do and lose time doing it?
Yes.
Right?
It's
Notice
it's
those
what
things.
lights you up, even if it doesn't make any sense.
Mm,
What are you drawn to, even if you might resist it or think it's silly? In the
right.
astrology land, I was training someone the other day, because it's part of my work with my coaching clients. They guide the ship in terms of where they want to go and what they want to learn. And one client I was teaching, more specifically astrology. And I said to her, and she has some background already, quite a bit actually. And I said to her, if you look in your chart where Jupiter is, that's where you go when no one's looking. And it like blew her mind. She had never heard that, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like, where do so for friends who listen, go where your Jupiter energy is. What do you do when you have free time and or no one's looking, that's in alignment, that brings you joy, that you can't get enough of, whatever those things are? And that's such good advice. And I feel like what you're saying is so wise and helpful, because a lot of clients come to me and they have manifested what they thought they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
They got the partner or they got the job and they're at the top of their field. I get a lot of executives, right, that like they're in their middle ages and they're like, oh, like I've gotten everything I've worked so hard the last 15 plus years for, and now I'm kind of miserable and I'm so messed up in my head,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so can you speak to that a little bit? Like, what happens? Okay, we need to get clear and follow the murmurs of joy and what makes us excited and lights us up. But then what happens for the people who, oh, I manifested all these things, the big house, the partner, whatever, and now I'm miserable?
Mm-hmm. So did you really want them? And that's that kind of like looking at our family. Well, did I just do this because I was supposed to? And not that mom and dad said you have to, right? Because I'm learning these things that I were imprinted on me from my family. Not that my parents were like, you have to do this, just little things. Like I can't myself. I think we may have talked about this before, and I was in the space of I can't. Wouldn't even give myself the opportunity to say, well, how much does it cost to go to the beach for the weekend? I can't. That was my
Mm-hmm.
upbringing. There was 8 of us, right? It wasn't like it was just you can't. There's too many of us. We can't. Right? But unconsciously, my now instant response when someone would say, "Joe, do you want to go to that concert?" I can't. Wouldn't even think. right? And this took years. Literally, I just realized this like, I don't know, a year ago, and I'm 49, right? So it was like the awareness of that. And we have to, not have to, explore. You are that executive. You lived this life. And now it's like, okay, I did this. Can I be proud of it? Even if I'm miserable, because I did it. And that should now show me I can do anything.
That's good. That's really, really good. Exactly. So use what seems to be circumstances that are now not satisfying you
Mm-hmm.
as a signpost that you can, however, manifest and create what you want. And now the process begins to what we spoke of earlier. Okay, now what is it I want? And it can
Mm-hmm.
be really helpful to like really make a list
Yes.
of, okay, what are the things in childhood that weren't necessarily said? I mean, maybe they were, most of us know those things. Oh, my parents always said, fill in the blank. Write
Mm-hmm.
those down. But then maybe make another list and psychologically Sherlock Holmes it a little bit and be like, Joe did so wisely. Oh, wait, what were those subliminal, unspoken messages that
So,
was part of my family culture? And
mm-hmm.
write those down. And that will blow your mind if you think about how you live your current adult ass life in relationship to those themes.
So adding on to that, because this is perfect, right? In the middle, right, of what you just said, right? Make that list of what you want and then notice the excuses that come up right away, right? So write the list down and look at that list and then write all of the excuses that come up. And then, like you said, right? And then look at the excuse. Where did this excuse originate from? And we
Yeah.
get to we now have the awareness of like, oh wait. And one of the things I notice with a lot of my clients is the initial awareness of I get to choose. I I get to pick. I get to decide. And so many of us have never, like, we know that we get to decide, but it's like we don't really decide. And then when someone just says, you get to pick, you really get to pick whatever it is that you want. So for that executive and really everyone that is listening, if you're like, okay, cool, but you're not telling us how to manifest Jack. Right. Um,
We're getting there.
We are, right. We're getting there. And a fun game, right, to start figuring out what do I want is to play a game called What Would I Do If Money Didn't Exist? And so money does not exist. You don't have to save anybody. Everybody is saved and safe. Because a lot of people will go right into, oh, I would take care of my mom and my grandma. Beautiful. But that's not what this is about. Everybody is safe. Everyone's taken care of. You have no excuses now. What would you spend your time doing? Start exploring that stuff. And I love this example. I heard Gary Vaynerchuk talk about this a long, long time ago in a keynote. He was talking about the Smurfs before the Smurfs movie was out. And he was like, if you love the Smurfs, talk about the Smurfs, write a blog about the Smurfs, make videos about Smurfs, have an Instagram page about Smurfs. He's like, I bet you pretty soon someone's going to make a movie about Smurfs now. And they did, right? They made the Smurfs movie. Coincidence? Maybe. But it's like, if you love something, no matter what it is, and you can just talk to your best friend about it, explore that. And it's like high level, like I want to change my life manifestation, right? Like
Yeah.
when you and your bestie sit down, what are you guys talking about? Like that gets you so excited that you're like, oh my god, let me tell you about this, right? Like I sit here
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, oh my goodness, I read this article from 2020 that said that local reality isn't real until we put our awareness on it. That's
So good.
science, right? So, and I just want to talk to people about it because it's where we put our awareness is what becomes our reality.
And to give people like a concrete example of that, because it's so mind blowing. And some people will hear that and feel the truth of it, but be like, but what does that mean? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
like when you walk down the street, I'm in the city right now in Philadelphia. I walk down the street. I can look down and there's so much shit and there's so much crap on the street. Or I can look up and there's spring trees blossoming and there's cool architecture. I still have to pay attention to not step in the muck, of
Mm-hmm.
course, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
not that you're not paying attention and you're walking through life blindly, right? And because that gets into bypassing if we're doing that. But
Right.
like we're aware and keep it in our peripheral vision, the muck and the gum and the sticky stuff. Yet, what we continually focus our attention back to, and the majority of the time, is the beauty, is the, like you're saying, what you want, is your own power, realizing that you are the co author of your life with the universe. You're not just a human and life is happening to you,
Mm-hmm.
but you can participate so much more. And when we do that, we really become the author of our own story,
Right.
and
And that's it. We become it. We are the creator now. We've taken
yeah.
charge and said, this is what I'm doing.
I really like how you talked about thoughts though, because I feel like now we're kind of at that place to
Mm-hmm.
speak about that, because they're thoughts and then they're feelings.
Uh-huh.
And I think a lot of people I work with, and it's very human, right, get overwhelmed with their feelings and think that the feelings are the precedent and the seed of them thoughts, but really it's the other way around if you're really paying attention, right? That's why thoughts are so important when it comes to this magic
Mm-hmm.
of manifestation art. So can you
So
talk about that a little bit, please?
yeah, and I'm gonna go like with this the feeling is very important. We need to be able to feel into it, right? What would it feel like to have that manifestation in your life? It's hard for us to feel into having it because we're used to feeling into scarcity. How am I going to get it? I have to pay this bill. Oh my goodness, I hate this job. I can't believe that I have to do this. And we're in that mindset of, right, we're pretty much our goals aren't inspired goals, they're goals out of necessity. So then we're just trying to get this right. I need to pay my rent this month. I need to do this. And they're not inspired goals. They're goals of necessity, right? Like we have to do these things, which are fine, but it also then keeps us in that space of always chasing, always chasing, always chasing, and never relaxing. And in that space of not being able to relax, our body is now used to stressed out. How am I going to pay this bill? I need to bust my ass to make this shit happen. And we make the shit happen. But we get into that space of, in order for me to make this shit happen, I have to feel stressed, panicked, like I'm about to get my butt kicked to make it happen. Instead of thinking, what if I can say, I would like this? And here's the thing, we get stuck in the feeling of, like it's easier for us to stay in the crappy feeling. And if we think of it like a toothache, right? Like if you have a toothache, you know you have a toothache. And there's nothing that is going to stop your mind from feeling that toothache. You might take a Tylenol, but you're still like, you know that if the Tylenol wears off, that toothache is right back. And your mind is right there. And it's like all of the crappy things that happen to us, we stay sitting with it, right? That person cheated on me. Now I'm sitting in this feeling of, oh my goodness, my heart is broken. So then when we want to manifest love into our life, we connect to the feeling of, oh, my heart was broken. I don't know if I really want to open up. But we have to say, well, what would the kindest, loving version of Joe be in a partnership? What would that version of Joe feel like? And can I make time to sit in that version of Joe?
So I love this because I wanted to get into specificities and the arenas of life that we all want to manifest. And I've heard you speak of love, and it's so beautiful from your own experience. So what is that? What did that look like for you? How can people do that? Because
You
like some people will say like, well, what does that mean? The highest, the most lovely version of myself. What does that have to do with the person that I want to attract and create? Particularly if I've been betrayed or heartbroken, because so many people have experienced that. So can you go a little more in depth,
mhm.
please, with
the
your wisdom?
the thing is, to really, what is the person that you want to be with? Like, what are their qualities? Write them down. Write down. They're kind. They're loving. They're sweet. They're outgoing. They're present. And you have that list of all of these qualities that you want this person to have. Become them. Be kind. Be caring. Right? Be present with everybody. don't walk around saying all men are crazy, all women are crazy, right? Like we really have to change that story. So for me, my personal journey, this is exactly what I did. I was listening to a podcast called, I think it's called the 2020 podcast. It was a Neville Goddard podcast. And the guy kept saying, before I was in a relationship, I would walk my dog and say, I'm so thankful to be a kind, happy, loving partner and puppy dad. And I'm like, that's so simple. So I would walk Stella and I'm so happy and thankful to be a kind, happy, loving partner before I was in a partnership. But the big thing here for everybody, right? We have to be honest with ourselves and really want to be in a partnership. Right. And
Yeah.
it's with anything that we're
And
manifesting. Like the wishy-washy doesn't work, right? We can't say, I want to have a partner in my life and then say, oh man, I did this. I 100% did this. And then I would say, man, I really love being single. I really love doing whatever I want to do. And if I want to get up at 3 a.m. and go sit downstairs, I can. I don't want
and
to be
that's
alone.
I hear that. I hear that so much. And that's so brave and honest. And thank you for sharing that, because I think that so many people are looking for love or a partner or a meaningful relationships, and they grapple. And what they don't realize is, oh, I want freedom. I love freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're that person who is like Joe, it's like, oh, I am so grateful to be a loving, compassionate partner, whatever you said, dog daddy,
Mm-hmm.
in a relationship that makes me feel free,
Yeah.
where I allow
Right.
my partner to be free, right? Like you start to hone in on, okay, underneath what I want, what are the feelings that are driving that? And that's so much, in my experience, the
Mm-hmm.
key to manifesting. I had shared on your wonderful IG lives that you and I do the first Wednesday of every month. And you and I were talking, and I had just manifested this car.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a car person. Like, I was the person who, up until, I don't know, a year ago, I couldn't even tell you like what anyone drove. I didn't even pay attention. I didn't even know like that there were symbols with the logos that, delineates car for car. I mean, I'm so not a car person. And like, I'm always, contemplating like philosophy and God, and like not looking at cars in this physical universe. But then this past year, my oldest has gotten really into cars, and it's so fun. Like, and I'm like, who am I and who is he? But we crack up. Like, he's, has a job where he's around a lot of cars, and was really interested in having a car that didn't use gas, for obvious reasons. And so I felt really passionate about that, so I think that's a key point. Like, also is what you want when you're manifesting something that's more abundant, like a house or a car. Does it have an altruistic aspect to it? That helps attract it, in my experience, from the universe. Not only how does it benefit you, but how does it benefit others? And then, also just thinking about, for me, it was like, oh, that would be so much freedom to not have gas. Oh, that would be so much freedom to be able to go 0 to 4 and under quick seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Like I realized, oh, it's freedom, it's fun, it's freedom. Freedom from stopping at the gas station. And so when I honed in on that word freedom, then it just like came to me so fast in ridiculous ways that I could never have expected. Like, on pen and paper, I couldn't afford it, and then all these channels opened up, and I didn't have to figure it out. All these miraculous things happen, and it just literally was delivered to me. And that's another key point, right? You don't have to figure it out. If I had sat there and be like, oh my God, I'm never going to get this car. Oh my God, I had a budget. I knew what my budget was. Of course, you do the work. But if I doubted that, if I went, okay, the car costs this amount, it doesn't fit into my budget, so I'm not going to be able to get it, right? That's where you have to change the thoughts and be like, okay, no, I have a budget. The car is expensive, so I'm going to allow the universe to bring it to me, because I have an altruistic aspect to my intention, and it's going to be so much fun and so much freedom. And then the universe just delivered it, right?
Yes. Oh, so many things that you just said that I want to touch on. I hope.
Yes, do.
I hope I remember all of them. First, I'm going to go with the word freedom, right? Like, you took all of that and narrowed it down to one word that's a feeling, right? So there was nothing in your mind, right, that was going to tell you anything negative about freedom, right? It was like your power word. So Doesn't matter what anybody says, right? Freedom, right? I got it. Freedom. And it means, right, everything that comes along with the car. So you don't even have to be in the space of, I'm so thankful for this car. I already have the car. I've got the freedom. Right? So it takes away a space. So as we are manifesting, like if you can come to right that feeling, the emotion of what it is, why you want it, right? So that's, I think, the formula with it. Know what you want. Where's my thumb? There we are. My hand wasn't in the camera. Know what you want is number one. Number two, why do you want it?
And excuse me, parenthetically, that means your thoughts, right? So one, you're clarifying what you want. I love your listing for people. It's so helpful. Two, you got to think, right? The thoughts precede the emotions, to clarify.
Right. So why do we want it? Right? What is the why behind the car? Freedom. Doesn't have to be, right? It doesn't have to be rocket science. It doesn't have to be this why that is, I want this car because I'm going to do all of these grand things. Freedom. We know what we want. We know why. And now that we know why, pure heart, pure intention, we move into being the owner of that car. And we then allow infinite intelligence, the universe, to do the rest of the work. Yes, you had a budget, right? But you still had to car shop. So in that car shopping, right, doing the process, infinite intelligence, find me that perfect car. Find me the car that's below budget.
And it was like, to be real, to keep it real for the audience, like it took me 2 or 3 years. It wasn't like, I've had other things in my life that I've manifested quickly. And I'm not like, I'm not such a car centric person. So it's not like I was thinking about it a lot too, to be fair. I had a car, it was enough, you know what I mean? So like if I was really focused and really open, like I could manifest it hypothetically tomorrow, right? Like you can really get things quickly if you are so aligned in all the things Joe and I are talking about.
Right.
For me, I definitely had some work to do with my mental capacity and my mind and my feelings and getting clear. I would actually, at times when I would go into the space, that I would notice where the car seemed hard and far away from me, I would notice that. And then when I was shopping at my co-op, there was always the car I wanted at the co-op. So I would go in the parking lot and I would actually stand. Sounds a little weird, but it totally worked. I would just stop and I'd stand in front of the car for a minute. I might walk around it and just like peer into it and just be like, oh, right. Like, oh, what would that feel like to be in that car? Oh, look at the handle shape. I love that handle shape. Like I would just take even a nanosecond to admire that. And I think that helped it too. What do you think about that?
Oh, 100%. 100%. And I love that you said, that it took a couple of years and you kind of were like, I don't want to say wishy-washy, but maybe a little wishy-washy, right? Like I'm interested. I'm okay for it to happen. Doesn't matter when it's going to happen. In 2020, I totaled my car and needed a car. So within, I think it was 22 days, the exact car that I wanted showed up at the exact price that I wanted. And I did these practices, right? Like, why do I want a Honda Element? Because it made me feel joyful. That's what I have. I have a Honda Element, right? I totaled a Honda Civic and I'm like, okay, it's the pandemic. I like Honda Elements. They're weird looking. I'm a weird dude. And I really I had one before and I really enjoyed it. And happy, right? It makes me feel happy and it gives me that sense of freedom. And this is how much money I have. And that's what I'm going to get this car for. And I had this window of time where I had the rent a car from my insurance, but then that was going away. And then there was like a window before I had something that I had to be at. And I was literally like, okay, by like the end of September, I need a car to take me to that place.
So what are the practices that you did in that short window of time? Like what were actual manifestation exercises that you were doing in your brain and your heart and your life?
I acted like I was a Honda Element owner. I joined every Instagram Honda Element, right? I started following every Honda Element Instagram page.
Oh, that's good.
I joined Honda Element Facebook groups and just started, right? Like just being in the group. Like I'm a Honda Element owner because they're like Jeeps, right? They're Honda Element weirdos out there. And I just started looking like, oh, I can do that to it. And I'll do that to it. And
Mm-hmm.
acting as if I already had the Honda Element. Every morning, no, I would wake up and I would open up my Google, and I took the time to set up the Google alerts to let me know when Honda Elements were for sale for whatever distance, from me from Philadelphia. So every morning I knew there was going to be an email showing me every Honda Element that was for sale in the 100-mile radius, because
Yeah.
technology is here. And I would then, I would hang out in those Facebook groups and look at the Honda Elements and yeah, I can't wait to trick out my Honda Element. And I haven't
So,
tricked out my Honda Element, but
but that's so good because people, it's not just like, oh, I would like to own the Honda Element. Okay. In my mind, let me picture for 2 minutes owning it. Let me print out a picture, which is very helpful, by the way. You can definitely do that. I had a picture on my wall that my son actually printed out, and within a month I got the car. It's because he wanted the car to drive too, because he thought it would be so fun. So finally he printed a picture out. So I'm a fan of that. Like, print the picture out,
yeah.
but even more, take it to the level that you did. Because so many people, you can't psych yourself into feeling like I am a Honda owner. Maybe you can. Your eye could to a certain extent, right? But some people won't. But what you did is so brilliant. You go, oh, and you actually take action steps as if you own that car to help give you that feeling when you can't jump to that feeling.
Right.
Now, in my experience coaching people, if someone still, is, say, want the Honda Element, and they are in the group and they still don't feel it, they confide in me, kind of I really just, I still can't feel any excitement, because what will happen is when you start doing these practices, it could be a writing exercise where every day you write it several times a day. I'm so happy and grateful that I own a Honda Element, or I'm so happy and grateful that I have this wonderful partner and lover. Whatever it is, writing can be a great tool, and that can help program your mind into believing that that's possible, and then it will be possible. But if the feeling doesn't come when you write the thing, if the feeling doesn't come when you've joined the Facebook group for the Honda Element car, another thing that you can do is back to what is the fundamental feeling that you want. Like we spoke of with my car, mine was freedom, yours was joy. Then go back to that and go really general. That's what Esther Hicks talks about. Some of you will know Esther Hicks, but they're great manifestors, and I have found that to be really helpful. When feelings don't come, no matter what the exercises are, the last parachute thing is common denominational. What's the bottom line feeling? And then where in your life right now do you feel that feeling? So for me, in the car example, it would be, okay, where and with whom do I feel really, really free? And just milk and focus on and surround yourself with that feeling of freedom. You've already deposited to the universe, hey, I want the car, or I want the relationship. And that's when it gets to what Joe had spoken of early on. Then you let it go. And you just go general to the feeling in another arena of life where you've already succeeded, or where you can already feel that feeling. And then that feeling will pull it towards you, in my experience. What do you think about that? Or what's your experience with that, with your clients and yourself?
Sorry, there was a little delay right there. I don't know how you end it. If you end it with a question.
Oh, what's your experience with that, with you and your clients? When people going general, and how that can be a really supportive strategy.
So it's great. And I think there's so much with this practice of manifestation comes to awareness. So if you're struggling feeling the feeling, let's start exploring why, what might be happening. I'm going to use this example because this just popped into my head, because I've also been, right, as I work with people that have day jobs or executives, I'm like, you have to think about your life too. Like, what do you want? So then hearing that reflected back at me, I'm sitting here like, what does Joe want? Shit, what do I want? Right? Because I'm, focused on growing my business and doing all of the things that I do, and was in that space of, I'm going to put all of my energy here. And I sat down one day and I'm like, what do I want? And a sauna popped into my head. I was like, I want a barrel sauna in my backyard. Partly because this is the second warm day of 2024. Right? It's April 30th. I'm like, I just need to be warm. It was cold and damp, and I think, yeah, I want a sauna. So I've been sitting with it. Yeah, the sauna. Uh-huh. And I know it'll be like it's good for me, right? It's not like I want a sauna to say, look at me, look how cool I am. But as soon as I said that, guess where my mind went?
Where?
What would my mom say if I had a sauna? What would my brothers and sisters say? Oh, Joe got a sauna. Look at how fancy he is. Right? My brain, and I'm like, holy shit. Look at that. I am unconsciously, right, sitting here. I'm saying, okay, this is what I want. But now I'm noticing bubbling up. My family. I love my family. Who cares what my family thinks? But my family would probably be the only one, right? If I'm at a cookout and someone would be like, oh, look at you. You got a sauna. Aren't you fancy? Yeah, I am fancy. Right. But in noticing that, right, is there something where there's this? And a lot of people I notice have this underlying struggle that I can't be better than my dad. I can't be better than mom. Even though our
That's a
parents want
really,
us to be better.
they want us to, but
But
that's very, very powerful and a very important point, because that I think is very much in a lot of our unconsciousness, especially people who are caretakers,
Mhm.
and who are empaths, right?
Yeah.
You think, oh, I can't surpass my sibling in certain things, or you could even say professionally, let's go into business and professionally, like, right? Because that's a lot of why people come to both of us as coaches.
Mhm.
They're working out their professional life. Oh, like, oh, I can't be more successful than my brother professionally, or I can't make more money, right? We don't even think these things, but
Right.
they're in there.
Mhm.
So
And that's
let's talk about
catching,
business, right?
those spots. And the good thing, which, right, paradox, the good thing is, right, when we do hit that block where it's like, I can't feel, like, what, like, why can't I feel this, like, what is happening with this? Then we start uncovering and then start exploring, and then when we finally figure it out, like, oh, that's where it came from, and that was bullshit too. So
Yeah.
I can start creating this new paradigm that in Joe's timeline that he is on, he has a barrel or sauna in his backyard. Maybe there's a hot tub and a cold plunge too, right? Like, and I should be okay with it. So the universe is really a tricky, wonderful place where vibration and feeling. So if I'm feeling, even though I'm like, I want it, I have it, there's an ounce of me that's like, oh, but I'm not worthy enough, because that I'm not worthy is going to create this massive boulder like in front of us, because now we're thinking, oh, right, I'm not worthy of this because my mom, Uncle Bob, Susie down the street. And all of a sudden, again, it's like when we let those thoughts get the best of us, then we're in a pickle. When really we just have
Yeah.
to be like, here, thought, I want this. Why do I want it? Now, we've both said this a couple of times, the letting go. And I know a
Yeah.
lot of people are probably like, I don't know what the hell that means. Because
It's
I
like
said that for
just,
the longest time as well. I'm like, let go. What? Like, I know I have to put an inspired action. So I have to put an inspired action, and I have to let go. What? Come on.
yeah. So, and
How,
let's talk about that, because some things, something I've experienced is there's some things that I've manifested, that I've thought of every day, that I've written down, that I've hardcore put in a lot of mental, emotional time in.
mm-hmm.
And then there are other things that have required me to think about and then let go, right?
Uh-huh.
So let's talk about that. Like, how do you know when you're putting too much manifestation energy in,
Mm-hmm.
or when you need to walk away? What do you think about
So
that?
what I've been finding is the letting go for me is not like, as I hold this crystal, like, let that shit go, right? But instead, saying, this is what I want, this is why I want it, and now subconscious, infinite intelligence, show me how to get this done, because conscious Joe still might not believe that I can have it. So I'm going to reach out, right? Spirit team, activate, subconscious, show me how we're going to do this. And in that, like, that's the letting go, right? Like, I'm not going to think of like the car. I know I have this much money for my car, and this is the kind of car that I want. And I'm going to look for the car. But besides that, I'm like, you got it, universe. Like, you got it. You work the magic behind the scenes to get that car to me. And I'll do right. I'm doing my part. And as I've been exploring this sauna, I started changing the way I'm looking at it is into, I can't wait to see how it shows up. Like, it's here.
Well,
I just can't wait to see how it actually like just shows up.
well, and that's so profound, and I think really interesting to explore this letting go, because like you're doing, you put it out there, you get clear, and then you kind of let it go and say, okay, goody, like on on
But
during
we're
the
still
holidays,
aware, right?
how's this gift gonna come? You know the holiday is coming, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you celebrate, whichever holiday, if you do, right, that kind of thing is coming, so then you
Mm-hmm.
can just like enjoy the anticipation without trying to figure it out and have attachment to the nuts and bolts of that. The other thing I want to say is that sometimes I've experienced with clients, they think they want a certain house or they think they want a certain job, and they put the energy and the effort into that. And then it's not coming, and then it's not coming, and they try to go through their childhood dialogues about it. And then there are other things that, that they do to try to manifest something, and then it doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
However, then surprisingly, a month down the line, 6 months down the line, they get, like, I had a client who literally got like a castle, like an old castle. That's not the house they thought they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
But when we were talking about it, it was like the house that she thought she wanted was really regal, and she wanted to feel like a sovereign, and she wanted to feel autonomous post-divorce, right? So the other thing is the universe can give you something even better. So trust that. Like, don't give up. If you listen to this and you try things, and then, I think like so many things in life, the majority of people give up at a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is with spiritual practices too, which to me are of course the most important thing, with these type of practices that dovetail spiritual practices, it's the people who don't give up. It will happen.
Yeah.
It will happen. It might be a castle instead of the house on the block in the suburbs that you thought. Let me tell you, this woman is so happy living in her castle on like an acre and a half. It's so much better than she thought, right? And that can really happen too. And it's because she kept working, we kept working, and she just didn't give up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the other point I think that is important to say.
Yeah. And I've seen that a lot. And, things happen on this journey. I have a person that I work with, when we started working, she was like, I want a piece of land to rescue dogs and a little house. And I remember saying, why a little house? Why not a big house? Like, why does it have to be a little house? Which, and it was all like, because, to do all of these things. And as we were working together, a vineyard showed up, and everything ended up being perfect. So it's a big piece of land with a vineyard on it and a house. They might be building a barn and other things, So it was like it started here, and then in the letting go and actually getting more honed in, and then realizing that I can say, I want the piece of property with the castle on it, right? And not shortchanging ourselves. And then allowing what happens. That same person along that journey was diagnosed with breast cancer and went through the whole battle and came out the other end. And right now she's sitting on her vineyard, right? Rescuing dogs, doing the work. And all of that happened within like 2 years.
Let's go there. Thank you. And bless her. And I'm so happy that she's now healthy on her vineyard. Let's talk about health, because I wanted to talk about health, and then let's get back to business. So when it comes to health, because, to be human is to have health challenges. And if you're lucky enough to have health challenges, it means you're lucky enough to be here, is what I always tell myself.
Beautiful way to look at it.
It's a practice, but that doesn't, I don't jump out of bed with something going on thinking that. Let me tell you, we gotta literally, and for me, I'm very mental, very intellectual, So for me, what works so often with manifesting is replacing my current thoughts, because I have a lot of them, with other thoughts that I curate. So for friends who are similar in personality, that is an awesome strategy that I highly recommend. That I come up with, I know, like, oh, something's going on in my body. Okay, I'm lucky enough to have a buddy and to still be here. And so I'm going to figure it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to have kind of certain thoughts that you've curated that are just pre-thought out, so that when the thing happens and you're freaking out or anxiety sets in or depression sets in, you don't have to come up with them then. You've already kind of come up with them, and they're standing in the wings waiting to come into your brain, and you got to put them there.
Mm-hmm.
So health. So talk to me about health. How do you help people? Me, it's thoughts, curating thoughts, and then replacing anxious and depressed thoughts with those thoughts. What are other things people can do with their health that you've experienced?
Same. I'm a big believer in the thought, because we have to control it. It's like that toothache. You know that toothache is there, and you're gonna say, "I got a toothache. I got a toothache. I got a toothache." Right? Cold and flu season. I got this cough. I can't get rid of this cough. Man, I just can't get rid of this cough. Can't get rid of this cough. Stop fucking saying you can't get rid of the cough. Sorry for that F-bomb. But you know what I mean? Like but we don't even realize, right? Like I was working with someone, that exact thing happened. And I said, when you watch the recording back, count how many times you said, I just can't get rid of this cough. Homework assignment this week. I'm so thankful my cough is gone.
Yeah, or I'm so thankful my breath is clear. Like,
right?
Even flip it to the positive, right? Like, don't even put cough in the equation. Maybe you do,
mm-hmm.
right? This is
right.
It might be, or maybe if it's so strong for someone, you just think, oh, I'm so happy I breathe and speak without any effort, something like that, right?
Right. And the thing, and we're human. It's just the way we are, right? Like you're sick, you're not feeling well. Someone calls and says, "How are you feeling?" Ah, man, I feel like crap. No, I feel great.
Yeah,
I'm getting better.
Or
I'm improving.
or like I'm getting better. Like when I feel shitty sometimes, and someone says something to me, it's like, oh, like, it's someone who's close to me, and it's like I don't want to, it's important to let feelings out too.
Right. Oh, of course.
So then I'll say like, oh, this is really hard, and I know it's going, and I'm open to it shifting. Mm-hmm. Right. You can add those tack on things.
Right. Right.
I used to know someone who every time, this is like 20 years ago, and I remember being like, before I knew a lot of what you and I know now, every time you say, how are you, to this person, she was older, and she'd go, oh, I'm better and better. And I remember the first time I heard that, I was like, is that like saccharine? Is that like, I remember it really stopped me in my tracks. She always answers like that. Like, is that like true? And then every time I see her, I could feel that she was really feeling that. She was really practicing that. And she had incredible success, like in her field. She was an actress and got all these accolades and awards. And like, she knew at that moment in my life, how I hadn't even consecrated all this, that her languaging and then the feeling behind her languaging was creating so much.
Yeah. And here's another, harsh reality that we all have to be in the space of health. Do you want to be healed?
Talk to us about that. That's really good.
So you, let's say you have a condition your whole life. Let's say you're deaf. And all of a sudden, someone says they can heal you. And you say, I've been deaf my whole life. I don't want to hear. Maybe I do, but I don't want to. You know what? I don't want to. But I can heal you. I don't care. And I use that, right, as an example, because who would we be, right? And I use that because I have two deaf sisters, and back in my youth in our church, right, there was someone that was like, I can pray on you and can heal you. And my sister was like, no. And everyone was like, what do you mean? I'm like, no, come on, we're all going to go in the back room. We're going to pray. She's like, whatever. I'm deaf. Who would I be if I wasn't? Now that's again, a little extreme, but some of us, again, unconsciously, we become comfortable with the sick version of us, and it's all we know. So if I'm not sick anymore, who would I be? And now I'm scared. So unconsciously, we're just going to try to stay safe. And again, our brain, it's like, what? So I'm going to stay sick because for some reason that feels safe? Unfortunately. So it's really great. There's so much because we can say manifestation, like you can have whatever you want. You can, and it can be easy. But a lot of us humans have gone through so much stuff, and there's so many layers that, like, depending where we are, you might have to really pull back some layers and really ask that question. A friend of mine just I hate to be deep like this, but a friend of mine just passed away. And
So sorry.
as this was happening, it was really quick. Thank God that it was, that it was quick, but it was as if it was just like, I remember feeling everyone was sending good vibes, but is that what we should be doing? Is that what they want? Because it seems like good vibes and healing energy, like we might be past that. Right. So it's like that person then knows, right? Like this is where I am. So, but I truly also believe if that person said, I've got more work to do, I want to live, we can make that happen as well. But we have to know where we are. And I look at life by saying, I'm stronger than any of the things. So if I'm faced with something, I'm going to fight it as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I feel right now. I don't know how I would speak later. Right. And
And one of the things I want to ask you, because I think this is really interesting and very helpful for people, is do you visualize yourself and see yourself really healthy? Because I think that that is a big component.
yeah.
We talked about words,
Mm-hmm.
but then there's visualization. And for friends who don't visualize well, there's just like a sensing. It can be very like a daydream. Just daydream yourself really, really healthy, really, really vibrant. I've definitely worked my way out of some different health situations, not mentally
Mm-hmm.
or mentally and visually, when I've done that practice that way.
Yeah.
And you can, they say, oh, you have to die and you have to suffer. Well, screw that. Why? Right?
Right.
Like, that's another thing. Like, I've heard amazing manifestors stay, and that stopped me in my tracks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what if we all started visualizing ourselves old and, I'm visualizing myself in a headstand and, doing Bakasana, like a arm balance, and then like walking into my bed, really old, tired, fall asleep, go. Like, why can't we visualize ourselves? Like, I think that should be a practice because we all walk around fearing death so much. And so I think that's another thing to really call out. I always go dark and deep as well as high and wide.
And I think that's the thing with healing. We have to be okay with the other end of it. Like we really have to, and all of us humans, we're really going somewhere. We really have to make terms with our, we're all gonna die at some point. I sit here and say, yeah, I'm gonna be 150. I feel it. Right? Like technology, we're gonna be rocking. And I'm not gonna be like old and wrinkly 150. Like I'm kicking it,
Right.
having a good time, Lenny Kravitz style. Because man, for 60, Lenny looks good. I don't know if you've seen
Is
Lenny
he 60?
recently.
It's so weird because I don't see a lot of Hollywood stuff. And I was traveling and he came up on my screen like on an airplane with his daughter. And I was like, damn, he looks amazing. Like, I don't know how old he is, but isn't he old? I was like trying to remember, but he does look amazing, right?
Yeah. So, and it's like
No,
looking
it's
at
so
that,
true.
like again, and this is perfect lead in, expanders, right? Like I am looking, and this might sound silly, I am looking to Lenny Kravitz to teach my brain now that when I am 60, if I want to put on my leather pants and my fishnet shirt and go do crunches in the gym like Lenny, I can. And
So good.
right, it expands my brain into, yeah, I can do that. And with all of these things, right, we want to be healthy. Start following healthy people. What are they doing? Can we, can we see that and say, you know what? If Susie can do this, so can I.
Yeah.
Same with anything, right? If you're that manager and you want to move into the C-suite office, start paying attention to what the people in the C-suite did. Right? Like
Yeah.
emulate them. Because if they did it, you can do it too. And this is perfect, circling all the way back to the beginning, right? Of the executive that has this career and now they want to leave. You were a kick-ass executive. If you could kick ass being an executive, you can kick ass doing anything else. Right? We just
Yeah.
have to be like, oh, right. What were the tools I used over here being the executive that I can now bring over here to talk about Legos?
Yeah, so good. And I think that when it comes to the health situation, as you're saying, it's so important to, you're alluding to, like, think about your participation in the way of responsibility, because it's
Mm-hmm.
so easy to get into this is happening to me. And instead of saying, okay, somehow I don't understand, it might be karmically, but I have taken this on. And so how can I participate more fully in my healing? Right. It's the same thing if you get broken up with or
Mm-hmm.
cheated on, the same thing if, you're in poverty, right? It's like, okay, there are circumstances on the outside for sure. Yet how can I take responsibility and accept this invitation of the universe to do so? And with health, I think it can be so much about, yeah, just really simply saying things like, I now release whatever karma, whatever psychological baggage is causing this. I now let it go. Or do some kind of ritual. Like, you don't even sometimes have to go into all the nitty gritty childhood stuff or trying to figure out the specifics. I mean, you can. I think that's very helpful, but sometimes we just can't figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, I'm a psychic medium. Someone comes to me with all these issues, and I say to them, oh, yeah, you had this happen when you were a kid, but I'm seeing this too from another lifetime that keeps happening to you over and over, right? And you got
Mm-hmm.
shot in the belly, and so you have belly stuff from another life, even though you hold your parents' divorce trauma in your belly. That's a concrete example, right?
Uh-huh.
So if you just do practices like, okay, I now release, completely, or I let go, or I allow whatever to come out of my body, and ritualize it, breathe it into it, into a stone, whisper it into a branch or a flower, and then let it go on a lake or the ocean or like wherever in your bathtub, and then bury it outside in your yard, things like that. If you ritualize things to get them out of your body,
Mm-hmm.
it can be simple. And the same thing, you could do that kind of ritual with a job. Like, I don't know what's blocking me. I don't know if I don't think it's my brother competition. I feel like I actually want to beat my brother and make more money than my brother,
Mm-hmm.
so it's not that for you. Well, whatever is blocking me from achieving the job that I want, the position that I want, I now let it go,
Mm-hmm.
and so we can perform ritual around that.
I love that. And I want to circle back to when you were talking about walking. Were you talking about walking, right? I love walking style meditations and visualizing. Well, keep your eyes open. This is an eye open walking visualization meditation. But as you walk, right, like look down at your feet and try to visualize yourself literally expanding, growing bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger with each step that you take. And each step you grow taller and taller, and you embody this version of you. So if you are that executive that is now leaving that C-suite to go start talking about Legos, what does that version of you feel like? Right? Give yourself permission, because obviously you must be silly if you enjoy Legos, right? Walk as that silly person saying, yeah, I was that. And now I'm this, and feel it, right? Like, what would it like? I walk around all of the time when I'm walking Stella, and I'm like, I am this coach. I am this author. And this is what it feels like walking Stella, knowing that when I go back, I have to go out on my book tour, or like any scenario like that. Like, I'm going for a walk, and then when I get home, I got to get out. I got to call with the president. I got to call with whoever. Right? What would that version of Joe feel like? That I got a new client. His name is Lenny Kravitz, and I've been helping him keep that mindset straight. What would that version of Joe feel like? And it's a silly, easy practice, because like when we were kids, right? Like, I think of when I played football with my friends on the street, right? I would say, I'm Walter Payton, right? Walter Payton was my favorite football player. So I'm Walter Payton, or I'm Jerry Rice, I'm Joe Montana. And we would take on the form of our favorite athlete. And I would
That's a
play my
fun game.
ass off, because I'm like, I'm Walter Payton and he's the best. And if he's the best, then I'm the best.
And that's an
Worked.
expander. That's an example of an expander, because I loved that. I love that term and I loved your description of it. So thank you for giving another concrete example, right? You're using someone else's
Mm-hmm.
success and energy and someone you'd like to emulate in certain ways as a way to move yourself towards that performance, that experience, that realization of what they have and or who they are. It's so good.
It's
And yeah,
like,
and I love, I just love so much of this conversation in the way of really giving people concrete things to do, because there's so many ways to do it. You can hear from Joe and I, there's so many ways to curate for your unique personality
mm-hmm.
things that work. Another thing that you can do if you're artistic, which, and I'm actually like not so much a fine artist at all, but at the change of the millennial 2020, I created 20 intentions for the next decade, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So you can work in small increments. You could work, okay, this month I want to create something really tiny. And one time I did this with red feathers. I was like, just really having a hard time manifesting some things. And I was just in a rut. And I thought, no, I create my own reality. I'm going to start small with red feathers, because I didn't care about red feathers because it was playful. It just popped into my mind, red feathers.
Uh-huh.
I was having such a hard time. I was like, I'm going to prove to myself red feathers, because I manifest my reality and I couldn't manifest bigger things that were being blocked at that time. And so I just started like laughing, red feathers, joking, red. And I'd be out with my kids, they were younger, and I'd be like, oh, I'm manifesting red feather, like, and just playing and, you know, whatever. And sure enough, a week goes by and I'm hiking in the woods. And my little guy at the time says, Mommy, oh my God, it worked. And I looked down and there were like 10 red feathers just in
Mm-hmm.
a row. And then that period of time, as I was going through a healing thing with my body and a moving thing with my house, every so often I just kept practicing the delight of red feathers. Oh my God, it's so fun, the red feathers. And I would just find feathers, red ones, everywhere. You know, so you can start like, okay, this month I'm just going to prove it to myself. I'm not going to do the big thing that I really want because it's so hard. I'm just going to do something small. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
start manifesting a blue feather or like whatever it is, whatever pops up in your mind right now. And then the other thing that I did at 2020 was I wrote down, I drew a big flower and I made 20 petals, you know, and this took me like 3 or 4 hours. I did this with my kids and we just had markers out and we're just like pasting and cutting. And I have it now. It's, you know, a board and I do my yoga practice every day in front of it. And it just
Mm-hmm.
has my 20 affirmations. And as I'm doing yoga, I'm embodying, I'm breathing, I'm saying them aloud, I'm feeling them, I'm thinking them. And then the rest of the day, I let them go the
Mm-hmm.
whole rest of the day, you know?
Yep.
And many of them have already come true. So that's another way. If you're creative, if you like to draw, or like me, if you don't, but you can still be creative and get it out into the world and maybe make a song about it. If you're a musician like you, Joe, you could like
Mm-hmm.
make a guitar song, right?
Oh my goodness! Literally, the other day on my Sunday service, I pulled the magic manifesting card, and I am, and then I was just like, "There you go, all day. I am magic manifesting. I am magic manifesting." And I was like, "If anybody can auto tune that for me and like add a beat behind it, like there you go. There's a beautiful song." And it honestly, all of these things that we talked about today all come back to getting our subconscious to realize we can do these things. And it's just figuring out what program am I rewriting, right? Like I have this wonderful iPhone. It's great. And every once in a while, I go to bed and it says there's going to be an upgrade of, to version 16.3. Let's all start focusing on what it is we want. And now what 16 version Joe 16.3 is over here with all of his crap stories. But tonight, before I go to bed, there's an operating system upgrade coming. And I'm going to be on 16.4. And 16.4 is a whole new timeline, a whole new paradigm where I'm allowed to have what I want. It's allowed to flow with grace and ease. I'm allowed to be happy and joyful and abundant. And I start telling myself that story. It's going to take a little while, right, for all the apps to update. But I'm now on this timeline. I've got this new operating system. And we really have to just get ourselves to believe that shit. And then, like you said, when we realize, like, oh, right, I am creating this, show me a red feather today. Show me a blue feather. Show me a pink flamingo.
Your pink flamingo. Well, I love it because maybe we'll take a half a minute and just practice right now. Let's do it in the way of let's start doing a mini manifestation. So if it's safe to do so, of course, because I like to have these episodes always with something really practical in the way of a meditation or mindfulness. Let's just close our eyes if it's safe to do so. If not, you can stare at a point in front of you or just pause it and do it later, or listen to it and then do it later. And just close your eyes and take a moment and take a deeper and more spacious breath. And as you take 2 more exhales, just really allow whatever is ready to be released. Let it go on the wings of that exhale. You don't have to figure it out. Just whatever is blocking any health, any abundance in your life. Take a deep inhale. Just allow it to pour out of you. And then ask yourself, it's called a dharana in the yoga and Buddhist traditions, just drop the question as you would a pebble in a pond. What would be really tiny and really fun to play with manifesting? Not a big deal thing, but just like my red feather example. What would be fun that would just like the universe, when I saw it, I would know was winking at me? Maybe it's blue glass. Maybe it's a picture of a wave on things. Often it's first thought is best thought. So see what pops up into your mind. Maybe it's a pink flamingo, like Joe. And then in the way and wake of programming our subconscious, now repeat to yourself, I am open and excited to see fill in the blank, and take another breath. And then on the next inhalation, take 3 of them and repeat the object you're going to create. So if it's red feather, inhale, red feather, and welcome it in. And say it 2 more times. Coordinate with your inhalation as you beckon it, cast it, and call it in. And then you can smile with a childlike playfulness, with that anticipation Joe and I spoke of, that it's coming. You don't know how, but like the holidays, it's coming. And then when you're ready, you can open and close your eyes a few times, get acclimated to where you are. Wow, Joe, you really are just always such a breath of fresh air, wisdom, and just like a manifestation magnet. So thank you so much for being here and really pouring your wisdom into the ears and hearts of our listeners. Where can folks find out about you and your amazing work in this world, particularly with manifesting?
Yes, the easiest place to find me is on Instagram at Inspire Create Manifest, and at our school community that you can find within Instagram by clicking on the link in my profile. And school is just a lovely private community that we are building with discussion boards and hangouts and Zoom events. And it's really a wonderful space to be around people that uplift and support you and hold you accountable to reach your goals and manifest your best reality. And I do one-on-one coaching pretty much through that as well. So if you're interested in diving deep into exploring what might be getting in your way, reach out. Let's talk. Set up a discovery call. They're free.
Amazing. And you do your Instagram lives with me. So why don't you plug that and plug your other lives too while you've got
so
folks'
much
attention.
stuff happening. I have a podcast as well that is now also called the Inspire Create Manifest podcast. And every Friday and every Friday and Sunday, I go live on my Instagram at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And the first Wednesday of every month, myself and yours truly, Kilkenny, go live at noon for a lunchtime psychic talk about all kinds of things that you get to be involved in these conversations and ask us questions. So we do that the first Wednesday of every month at noon, all Eastern Standard Time.
Amazing. Well, and folks who are listening, if you want help clarifying, because like I said, I have so much air and water in my chart, in my life, and in my body. Part of my life's work is really refining how to get clear about what I want, what people want. I've created a mindful manifesting map. So I have this beautiful document that I've made. I give it to all my coaching clients, and it really helps people process, well, what is it they actually even want that's really authentic to them. So you can go to modernmystic.love/map. That's modernmystic.love/map to grab that. That's free. And Joe, I just thank you for just being so spacious, being so fun, and for all your hard work that you've done on yourself in the way of manifesting so that everyone could benefit.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's
Thank
just great
you.
having you.
Thank you so much. It's a joy to have these conversations with you, and always so much fun. Thanks, everybody.
Well, here's everyone to living a more magical, mindful, and mystical life. Namaste.
Namaste.